I was also super inspired by one of my professors at NYU. Her name's Professor Sharma. She's the social media and digital marketing professor that I have. And she was just kind of sharing that, like, even if you want to pursue a 9 to 5, even if you want to pursue entrepreneurship, putting yourself out there and making a name for yourself online right now is something that it's not going to hurt anybody. And the cost of not doing that is going to be much more impactful than putting yourself out there, maybe getting a couple laughs from your friends and maybe getting clowned on a little bit.
Hey guys, I'm Alex Yang, and this is the How I Decided podcast, a show where regular people share important decisions they've made so that we can make better decisions in our own lives and also figure out what we want from our lives and how we want to live our 20s. And if you're new to the How I Decided podcast, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow us on Spotify, and also on Instagram so that you can stay up to date on the newest episodes and spread the word about the importance of decision making in our 20s. My guest today is Kevin Kim. Kevin and I first met through NYU Athletics, where I was on the tennis team and Kevin was on the golf team. A few weeks ago, I was just scrolling through my Instagram reels and saw Kevin pop up on my feed, talking about his experience as a Division III golfer and a student at NYU Stern. I found it super interesting that he was creating social media content, and I called him that same day to ask about why he was doing it and how the experience was for him. Later that week, one of Kevin's videos went viral, hitting over 500,000 views. I think there are definitely negative connotations around being an influencer or content creator these days, especially if you're in college and someone like Kevin who goes to a great school and plays on a sports team. Wouldn't creating content be a huge distraction? In our conversation, Kevin shares his motivation behind making content, and we discuss why decision-making becomes easier when you realize certain choices are risk-free and that both your options can coexist with one another. Now, on to today's show. I wanted to start off with a little context because we know this conversation is going to be about content creation, but specifically I want to share with listeners if they haven't seen your account what it's about. So I've been following it for a bit now, and it's you post one reel a day where you kind of reflect on your day or life lessons that you've learned as a Division III golfer, as a student, as someone making content. And my perspective on it is that it's very reflective, it's very positive, you're sharing lessons with others. And you also have this 90-day challenge where you're trying to get to 10,000 followers. So I want to hear first, why did you initially want to start this? And did you kind of have an inspiration?
The main reason why I started was just because for me personally, I've been consuming content for a long time. Obviously, I just realized that if I'm going to be on it for about 5-6 hours a day, I might as well put out something for myself and not just be a consumer, but also be a producer of content. So that's kind of why I got into it. And I always wanted to create content about my life and the life that I was living in NYU. So yeah, I just thought that it'd be a good way to start. The whole 90 days to 10,000 followers thing kind of started for me, just trying to anchor myself and give myself something like a challenge to really go on and stay consistent with the content. So that's kind of how, that all came to be as well.
So for you, was it kind of a in the moment kind of thing that you were, no, I'm going to go after this? Or was it something that you actually thought through or had kind of already had been lingering on for a while?
I've definitely been lingering on it. This kind of goes a lot with what my passions are. For me, I always love creating and building things. And my freshman year, I started a little business per se, and it was a business dedicated for high school seniors trying to apply and go through the college application process. And I ran a little business. I sold a course on kind of going through resumes, letters of recommendation, how to write the essay. And when I was building that, I just felt so fulfilled. I really felt like me doing that kind of work and me building something that I could be proud of was something that I wanted to do. And for me, I think content allows me to do kind of just that. Obviously, my content isn't a business. It's not something where I'm making money off of, right now, but it's something where I'm able to build and and push out my own authentic self. And it's something for me to look back and be proud of. And so that's kind of how I got started. Like, and that's been kind of my inspiration to really get going with it.
So you've always kind of wanted to be an owner and like build out something
Yeah,
on your own
for
that
sure.
you created and that you're building part of your brand. I wonder,
Yeah,
like, when you started out doing this, do you think you'd actually make it to 90 days? Like, did you think that you'd actually achieve
yeah,
that consistency?
yeah. I honestly was obviously it has been 90 days, so I still want to cheat myself. But I'm on like day 86. But
Yeah.
I I don't know if I expected to be so consistent, but I definitely was very driven in the beginning. And I definitely knew that this was something that I wanted to do. And I knew that I had somewhat of for the time of it because the type of content that I make, it's me sitting down, reflecting on my day. And something that I learned was I had to be very okay with being imperfect because posting consistently, it's like you can't make a perfect video every single day. Like there'd be days when I went out with my friends to some bars or and I got back at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. and I was like, oh crap, I didn't make my video yet. And so I would sit down, red face, a little drunk, making my video and getting over like my fear of being on camera and being on social media was definitely one of the biggest challenges in the consistency aspect of it. But I set a challenge and I set a goal and I tried my best to stick to it. And so far, it's been going pretty decent. Yeah.
The point you make about being on camera, I think, is interesting for me because you talk about wanting to build something of your own and own it. I think there are a lot of ways, different ways you could go about that, right? You could have, say, a startup or a business that's where you're kind of like doing it behind the scenes. You don't really have to be exposed to other people, but social media is something unique where you're literally your face is in front of other people's faces, like everyone's
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering specifically, what is, I guess, the unique aspect of content creation that you learned about that's helped you with personal growth or just
Mm.
things that you think can could have can help you in a way that you couldn't have, say, like doing like another sort of business where you're not showing your face.
I think content creation and showing my face on camera helped me get over a lot of my social anxiety that I felt like I had. I think back before I started creating, I was so like worried about what other people thought of me, what others expected from me. Alex, I'm sure you know this as well. Students at a business school, it's something where there's a lot of expectations, I feel like, and a lot of status quo expectations. So you have to get this internship, you have to go down this path. And for us, and for me, that felt like I had to go down a path of like finance and get a high paying job. And social media is something that is very, right now, I think it's pretty uncommon for people in college to be doing and consistently putting your face out there. And yeah, and I just knew for me deep down, I always wanted to be like a creator and an entrepreneur and somebody that was building my own path in things. And ultimately in the future, that's kind of what I want to be. I want to be a self-employed entrepreneur. And so I knew that at some point I had to get over this fear of judgment from others, right? And
Mhm.
I think creating content really allowed me to do that. And yeah, it really just helped me with that aspect of my life and developing as a person.
Got it. Yeah. And when you talk about posting and the fear of judgment,
Yeah.
do you have any strategies for personally dealing with that, or is it just
Mm.
so kind of the relief of seeing that you're posting consistently and nothing really bad is
Yeah.
happening about it? If anything, I think I've
Uh,
seen some of the comment sections being supportive from like people at Stern and stuff. So how has that been for you, and how do you deal with that judgment?
Before I started this challenge, I accepted the fact that my content was gonna suck. Like I knew initially I kind of when I started, I was like, okay, like I know this isn't gonna be the best content, but what I can do is be as authentic and as relatable as possible with people. And hopefully that connects to someone, right? And the support and the positive feedback that I received, I think has just been a testament to, I think, me being relatable and me being somewhat authentic. It wasn't because the video production or the quality of my videos was like insanely good or anything. The main thing I feel like people really did connect with though was kind of the message and the actual like the depth of of the videos that I was putting out. And that was super encouraging. And so for me, I think I also heard like Mr. Beast, he says that like your 100 videos, your first 100 videos are gonna stink, right? And I kind of just accepted that before I started creating. And I just try to detach myself from the results, meaning that like I knew that in the beginning I was probably gonna have like not that many views, maybe like two, 300 views. But then I just kept focusing on the inputs, like what I could control, which was the message that I was putting out, the videos that I was making. And so just trying to focus more on that instead of that like the actual results just helped me a lot with getting over that like fear of what other people think about me.
I think that's kind of the same language that when I was growing up, a lot of my like tennis coaches would use, which is like
Yeah.
to not, and I'm sure it's the same for golf, right? It's like focus on the
Yeah.
process, the inputs,
Yeah.
and the results will come. But it sounds like almost like you kind of lowered your expectations in the beginning
Yeah.
because like, and that worked in allowing you to focus more on the process and what you can control rather than stuff like likes or reviews, which to some extent is out of your control too with the
Yeah.
algorithm and whatnot. So I
Exactly.
really like that framing of how you did that. One reel that I watched that you posted was about how the main motivation for creating content for you is to work towards this lifestyle where you're free from a traditional 9 to 5. You're building your own personal
Yeah.
brand. You're creating something, whether that's content or something else.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, at what point did you kind of reflect on it and think about that this was the kind of life you wanted to pursue?
Watching my reels, I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always.
I guess kind of goes back to school and how that impacted my life. Obviously, being at business school, like I said again, there's a lot of expectations for us business students to go get internships, go get a job. But for me, something that I always wanted to chase and always felt like optimizing for was fulfillment. And I thought that building my own brand and being able to create my own things and build my own type of business would be something that I could be so much more fulfilled by. And obviously, I'm doing an internship right now. It's remote at a tech company, but it's great and all. But at the end of the day, again, I want to feel fulfilled in a way that I really want my impact and the things that I'm doing, my inputs, to really have an effect on another person. And so, in terms of, I guess, building my personal brand, I was also super inspired by one of my professors at NYU. Her name's Professor Sharma. She's the social media and digital marketing professor that I have. And she was just kind of sharing that, like, even if you want to pursue a 9 to 5, even if you want to pursue entrepreneurship, putting yourself out there and making a name for yourself online right now is something that it's not going to hurt anybody. And the cost of not doing that is going to be much more impactful than putting yourself out there, maybe getting a couple laughs from your friends and maybe getting clowned on a little bit. And so I think I just realized that like there really is no risk to doing content creation other than I guess like I just said, like maybe getting judged a little bit by your friends. But at the end of the day, you'll realize that your friends will actually just support you. And if they don't, it's like, are they even your friends? I don't know. So, but yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, just creating content, it really had no risk per se for me.
And on the point of risk, actually, after we had a conversation, I remember I called you about your content, and then I posted my first reel, and I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
I hope, like, I hope no one says anything bad
yeah.
about this. This is cringe.
Uh-huh,
And then I posted on Instagram,
uh-huh,
and then I don't know, go to the bathroom or something. Sure enough, when I come back to my phone, it's like
uh-huh,
my tennis team's group chat, and someone's like, "Yo, what is this? Like, why did you?"
yeah.
Which was like kind of funny. And I realized like after experience that, I was like, I don't really care. And I think what's really interesting about this is we talk about decision making a lot. This is a podcast about decision making. And a big aspect of decision making is risk and uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the risk sometimes that we perceive is actually pretty much non-existent, right? Like someone
Mm.
who's new to posting content might think that,
Yeah.
oh no, like my social status, whatever, or whatever people are going to think of me. When in
Yeah.
reality, there's pretty much just no downside there. And I think
Mm. Mm.
that can really simplify decision making where like if you're hesitant about posting content, like you kind
Yeah.
of have to, and sometimes it maybe just takes like posting the first couple things to realize that like, hey, there really is no risk to this, and this is something that you can just actively pursue. And if it goes somewhere, great. If it doesn't,
Yeah.
uh, it's okay as well. And I think what's great about your story as well is that
Mm.
you're, not. I think you still have an internship this summer that you're doing, and
Mm.
you're able to do content. And it's kind of
Uh,
everything about decision making is simpler if you can raise the quality of all of your options, right? So
mm.
you're getting that experience, and then also making time for your own personal brand and presence. I do want to ask you, do you think you'll work a regular job after you graduate?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not gonna sit here and say that like my Instagram reels and posting content is gonna guarantee me a life of freedom and it's gonna guarantee me a life of financial freedom or whatnot. I still understand that I'm in a position right now where I'm just starting out and I need to get a job. I mean, but there's no doubt about that for me on my end. But what I do know is that content is that's something that I could do on the side. It's not something that I have to stop just because I get a job. Maybe one day when I do have my stable and 9 to 5 job, I can make content around that. And maybe that
Yeah,
content eventually, maybe that could take off. And so I just think there's so many opportunities with posting online and making content around your life. There's a lot of creators I know that they post about like their 9 to 5 job and you'll see that like their Instagram and those reels have so many views and they have like a million followers. And it's like, wait, can't this person just quit their job and just pursue content and make their life around content? But I think there's beauty in the fact that like content is you can just fit that in into whatever life you're doing. And so, yes, I definitely see myself getting a job. I think currently a pretty inexperienced person also. So I would love to kind of gain some experience with like a 9 to 5 job, but maybe in the next 5 years, I'll definitely reconsider my options.
let's say just like to push back, or let's say someone who's like a really big fan of yours, of your content and stuff, is asking like, Kevin, why don't you just, you're young, you can afford to take some risks. Like, why not just go all in on your content, say after
Mm.
you're done with school and stuff, and
Mm.
just dedicate all your time to that? And I think the argument that could be made is like, if you're making some sort of progress now, like imagine how much you could be
Mm.
achieving when you like dedicate your entire day to it. So what are your thoughts on something like that?
Mm. No, I think that's a fair point. Where like if you have, let's say you sleep for 8 hours, eat for like I don't know 3 hours, so now you have like what 24 minus 11, 13 hours to dedicate to content. I agree that maybe like that could be something that if I had 13 hours to spend on content creation all day, maybe that could be more successful in it. But the one thing about content is obviously there is no guarantee. And taking that risk is, I would say, for me in my life right now, it's not something that I feel like I need to take just because with the 9 to 5, I still think that I can create content where and still fit my 9 to 5 life in it where they can both coexist. And so, yeah, I think interesting enough, even having a corporate job, even having a life outside of content will even make the content I create at the
Yeah,
end of the day even more compelling and even more authentic to my viewers, if that makes sense.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I think there's an argument for my content to even be better with a 9 to 5 life, with a life outside of content.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. No one
Yeah.
wants to see my
Yeah.
life as unemployed
Yeah.
single person
Exactly.
living in New York, or at least I haven't seen that.
Mm.
Now I kind of want to like share like another scenario. So let's say like
Yeah.
hypothetically specifically you, Kevin, you've gone all in on content
Yeah.
right after school, and then you meet with like a classmate who's like
Mhm.
catching up with you, and they're like trying to be nice. They're like asking like what you're doing. You're saying you're making content,
Uh-huh.
and what they're basically like implying is like, yo, like why did you like waste your Stern degree? Like how would you respond to
Yeah. That's a great question because for me, I contemplate about that a lot, really. I think about getting a degree from NYU is obviously not an expensive or not a cheap one. Arguably, it might be the most expensive one in
that?
the nation. Uh, but I think at the end of the day, you have to pursue what you truly want deep down. And just because I went to Stern, just because I went to a great business school, does not mean that I'm limited to some careers and some career opportunities that is being pursued by all my peers. I think it's so easy to fall into that trap of doing what everybody else does. I mean, I think I fell victim to that my first couple of years of college where I was like, okay, I want to be an investment banker because it's obviously first of all a high paying job, but it's also because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what just seems right. I mean, you have so many finance clubs at Stern, so many pre-professional programs kind of guiding everybody towards that career path. And you just feel left out and you just feel like not with everybody else if you don't pursue that career path. And so I think it's so easy to fall in that trap. But at the end of the day, like I know that that's not the kind of career that I want for myself. And I think the earlier you realize that, and for me, like it's not like content for me is like something that I know exactly like this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. It's not even that. It's more so I just like creating and building things, and that's what
Mhm.
content allows me to do. Maybe that leads me down a path of maybe I start to work at a Series A start. Like maybe that's what this all eventually leads to, right? But I think doing what feels right to you and you specifically is so valuable and so important for I think college students to know. Because yeah, I think we're all just trying to figure it out right now. And so you
Mhm.
just got to stay true to yourself.
Yeah. Well, I really love that perspective. I had some of the same thoughts while I was in school.
Yeah.
And like thinking about it now, I realize kind of that it almost like thinking in that kind of conventional way was like taking my own agency out of my own decision making
Yeah.
because I remember a thought I had while like I was an underclassman at least was like, oh, Stern is known for finance and banking, so
Yeah. Yeah.
therefore I should make the most out of like whatever strengths
Mhm.
my school has and pursue this career, which is like
Yeah.
to me now that's a bit silly because it's like
Yeah.
you're letting your environment like dictate what you're going to do. And then, I also love your point about, maybe like content isn't like the end all be all, but just the path because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently too about careers and stuff and how not everything I feel like we always feel like that each next step in our career has to be this like really intentional decision that's very clear about why we're doing this and it's getting us towards whatever ambiguous end goal. But really sometimes just about what are you excited to do? Like,
Yeah.
will this help me grow? And it's also,
Yeah.
I think this experience for you is really great and that's something that you're not inherently the most comfortable with, but it's allowed for a lot of growth and it ultimately supports, I guess, this idea of building and creating for yourself.
Yeah.
I have just a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
And one of them is what was unexpected for you in doing this 90-day challenge? Say, Kevin, at the beginning, like day one, and now day 86. What's kind of been unexpected about this process of content creation?
Yeah. I think one of the most unexpected things for me was just to see, just to, I think, see how many more people that I've met just by creating content. Like, I've met so many different creators that I've been watching before I started creating, but now I actually reached out to them and I was able to have like a couple calls with them, just seeing what their mindset was, why they started creating content. And just seeing that like all these content creators I see online, they're just people too, and they're also just figuring it out. Like you'll find that like I think just all these Instagram influencers and all these content creators, they're no different from you, right? And just for me, when I wasn't creating content, just watching these people, I think I put them on like a pedestal where I was like, wow, like one day I want to be like this person. And I'm not like here to like knock them. Like I'm not saying that they're these regular Joes and that yes, obviously they are very ambitious, they're driven and motivated. But I think I genuinely believe and I've come to realize that like content is something that literally anybody can do because your life experience is no one else's. It's so unique to you. And what you might not think is interesting in your life is actually super interesting to somebody else out there. And so, yeah, I think that's just what I realized by creating content is how simple and how normal all these other creators are.
Thank you, Kevin, for
Yeah,
sharing about this. I think this is a really unique story, and I remember from when I first saw your first reel, I was like,
yeah,
recognize that it was you and stuff.
yeah,
And it was great to reconnect and kind of discuss and see what you're doing. I'm really happy that you're
yeah.
on this now, where you're really owning your own hustle and stuff. So thank you for joining, and also like plug your Instagram account so maybe we can get it over
That'd be great, man.
to get to over 10K followers. But yeah, I think that'll be great, and we'll share that with everyone. So thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode with Kevin Kim. A few of my takeaways are that creating content really allowed Kevin to get over his fear of being judged, and maybe we should continue to seek out more experiences in our own lives that allow us to overcome our fears because we're kind of forced to face them straight on. Another thing I took away is that an important part of decision making is always understanding the risk and consequences of your choices. But sometimes those perceived consequences aren't actually really ones that you should care about. Part of what made the decision to be a content creator simpler for Kevin is that there's really no risk to creating content beyond superficial things like getting made fun of a little bit by your friend. It's a risk-free choice and one that allowed Kevin to still pursue an internship and build his resume. My last takeaway is that decisions don't have to be all one choice or another. And sometimes you can consider if there are ways to make both your options coexist. For Kevin, he can make content and do a 9 to 5. And actually, he argues that having a 9 to 5 makes his content more authentic and relatable. So it actually helps him out. And in that situation, pursuing both choices can increase the overall value of one choice. I don't know if there's a term for this that's out there already, but I think that's a really cool thing to have in the world of decision making. And thank you so much again for listening.